Turn, if you will, to the book of Mark in the Word of God. The book of Mark in the Word of God. Mark chapter 8 in the Word of God. Mark chapter 8 in the Word of God this morning. Mark chapter 8 in our Bibles. Look at Mark chapter 8 and verse 22. Mark chapter 8 and verse 22. And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town, where he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him. And he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up, and said, I see men as trees walking. And he put his hands again upon his eyes, and made him to look up, and he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. And Jesus went out, and his disciples in the towns of Caesarea Philippi by the way, and he asked his disciples, saying unto them, whom do men say that I am? And they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elias, others one of the prophets. And he saith unto them, but whom say ye that I am? And Peter answereth and saith unto him, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man of him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spake that, saying openly, but Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. And verse 34, And when he had called the people unto him, his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and for the gospel, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of men and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, and when he cometh in glory of his fathers with holy angels. Here you see in Jesus' ministry, his fame is spreading abroad all over the land. And Jesus is healing people. He's raising people from the dead. He's doing miraculous miracles. The Bible says that there's not enough ink, there's not enough pages to write down all the miracles that Jesus had performed. But here you see, I think it's interesting in this chapter in verse 22, he came to Bethsaida. And it's fascinating here that these people, they're starting to flock to Jesus, not for his teaching, not for his ministry, but for his miracles, but for his powers, but for some amazing thing that he's going to perform. So you see here in verse 22, he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. All right, I'm going to get two people to help me with illustrations, and the only two people that's going to do what I say is Garrett and Pierre back there. So we're going to get them to come up here this evening. Their heart's pounding right now. They're going to pass out. It'll be all right. I got to stand up here all the time. You'll get used to it. But, all right, who's going to be blind? Somebody has to be blind and close your eyes. I'll be blind. All right, go over there. Go all the way over, Garrett. Go stand next to him. All right, close your eyes, Pierre. So Pierre's this blind guy. And you know what? Jesus, as he's doing this ministry, as he's going around, he's healing people. But now these people are starting to want to find Jesus, and they're starting to grab random people with ailments. Think about this. There's no indication, and I believe that these people had no idea who this blind man was. These people were walking around. They saw, hey, there's a blind guy. Jesus is in Bethsaida. Grab him and throw him to Jesus. Take him to Jesus, and we can see some miracle performed. And we can see some amazing thing done. So, Pierre, you got your eyes closed. Garrett, grab his hand and bring him over here where, say, Jesus is standing over here. You got to run. These people are running to him. Go, run. Run, run, run. Pierre can't see. You're not running. That's walking. All right, now drag going back the other way. You got to hold Pierre's hand. He can't see. Run that way. You got to run. You got to run. Now run back this way. I haven't seen you run yet. You're going to keep doing it till you run. All right. You see here, they're dragging this blind guy. You guys go sit down. Thank you. They're dragging this blind guy all around. You can imagine, as you see Pierre, he was apprehensive. He's like, I can't see where I'm going. They're dragging this blind guy, and they come and almost throw him at Jesus' feet. Hey, here, Jesus, here's somebody that has an issue. Let's see something amazing. Let's see a miracle. Show us a show. Give us some entertainment so that we can see this amazing thing. So when he cometh to Bethsaida, back in verse 22, they bring a blind man unto him and besought. Notice they said they besought him. Remember most of the people when Jesus go, as you're going through the gospel, what did blind Bartimaeus? He cried out, "Oh, thou son of David, have mercy on me." The lepers, they cried to Jesus, "Have mercy." But here you notice this. It doesn't say the blind man besought Jesus. It said the crowd besought Jesus to heal him so that they could see something amazing. If you read it there, they brought this blind man to Jesus and besought him to touch him. They bring this blind man to Jesus and they say, "Here, Jesus, heal him." Almost like a sick puppy dog. Almost like, somebody, they're bringing all these people with ailments. Hey, Jesus, let's see something cool. Let's see something amazing. We found this one on the side of the road. Can you do something for this guy? And notice what Jesus does. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. Jesus said his ministry is not for show. His ministry is not for entertainment. He's not here so that everybody can see a miracle or see something amazing happen. He's here to help people. He's here to heal people. You see, these people, they really didn't care about the blind man. They cared about seeing something amazing. They cared about seeing something cool. And we live in an entertainment-driven society. We're obsessed with entertainment. We're obsessed with movies, shows, sports, athletics, anything that can grab our attention, anything that's out of the ordinary. That's what people are obsessed with. But Jesus said that's not what his ministry is about. So he took this blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. He took him away from the crowd. He took him away from the chaos. He took him away from the people. Because Jesus said, I'm not healing people for you guys just to watch a television show. I'm not healing people for you guys just to be entertained. He's healing people to help people, and he's healing people so that they know that he is who he says he is. So that they know that he is the Son of God. That he is the Christ. But you see, at this point in Jesus' ministry, all these people were concerned about is seeing something cool. Seeing something amazing. Being entertained. Jesus taking this man out of the town and away from the crowd goes against everything in modern Christianity in this day and age in our nation. Goes against every mega church genre, whatever you want to call it. Goes against all the programs and this and that. You say, what do you mean? Mega churches, that pastor's not going to start until he can pack as many people in that church so that they can hear what he has to say. Churches, we're all about entertainment in today's day and age. I don't mean our church, but many churches, they're about entertainment. They're about the views. They're about the likes. They want to get people, they want to go viral. They want their services to explode. Here you see Jesus. He wasn't there to go viral. He wasn't there for attention. He was truly there to help people. So he took this man, he took him out of the town, took him away from the spectacle. Notice what he does here. Pierre, come back up. I'm joking. We're not going to reenact this next part here. And he took him, and notice this, and he had spit on his eyes. Pierre's getting nervous now. Don't worry. He spit on his eyes and put his hands upon him, and he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and he said, I see men as trees walking. Interesting passage. I often think that Jesus gave him spiritual vision here. In the book of Isaiah, it says that the righteous are like the trees and grow. I think God here, Jesus here, gave him spiritual vision for this first healing. I don't think it was that Jesus didn't do it right the first time. I don't think it was that, Jesus needed practice or anything like that. That's not true. He's the Son of God. He has power. I think he gave him some spiritual vision here. He said he sees men as trees walking. That's an interesting interpretation. You say, well, why would he say trees? If he wasn't seeing clearly, he wouldn't say trees. He would say shadows. He would say vague images, something like that. If he has trouble seeing, blurry. I'm supposed to wear glasses for things far away. I can't see far away. Things are blurry far away, and some have worse vision than me. You take your glasses off, things are blurred. Wife has horrible vision. I put on her glasses one time, I'm like, man, you can't see anything. Well, some people, they have trouble seeing. But it's interesting that it says here he sees men's trees walking, because like I said, if you would know, if you have trouble with vision, you take your glasses off, you wouldn't describe people as trees walking. But I think he truly saw trees walking. I think he truly saw a picture of spiritual eyesight here. Spiritual vision. I wonder if he saw some dead trees walking. People who are spiritually dead. I wonder if he saw some trees that were alive. We just had this terrible storm, ice storm and winter storm that came through. And how many people lost trees and tree branches? A bunch of trees went down all over. Branches down. One thing that happened with this storm was even the live trees struggled. Even the trees that were alive lost branches. We had a cedar tree that was alive, and half of it broke off, fell right into our garden. Thankfully, nothing that's not repairable there that we can't take care of. But this man, he had this spiritual vision that the Lord gave him here, and he sees trees walking. So he spit on his eyes, put his hand on it, and then he put his hands on his eyes again and took it away. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes and made him look. And he was restored, and he saw every man clearly, and he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town, nor tell it to any in the town. Jesus said, don't go and tell everybody, because people are starting to use me like a genie. People starting to try and use me like a magician, if you will. They're there to see a magic trick, and he's here to show the power of God. There's a big difference. Christians in this day and age get so wrapped up in entertainment, get so wrapped up in seeing something amazing, they forget the purpose of church. They forget the purpose of preaching Christ. We are here to give the gospel of Jesus Christ to help people. We are here to show that Jesus saves, that Jesus offers salvation to a lost and dying world. And here you notice Jesus reiterates this fact by going to his disciples, and he says, whom do men say that I am? He tells his disciples, and he talks to his disciples. Notice after all this interaction occurred, he said, who do you guys think I am, and who do men say that I am? Do you guys just think I'm some magician with some magic tricks? Do you guys just think I'm doing some amazing things? And they answer John the Baptist, and they say Elias and one of the prophets. But whom say ye that I am? And Peter got it right here. He answered, thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man. And he was letting them know what was going to happen, what was going to become of him. And then in the next chapter, you see Jesus' transfiguration. I want you to notice in chapter 9 and verse 14, you see another story, different circumstances, but Jesus does a similar thing here. And when he came in chapter 9 and verse 14 to his disciples and saw the great multitude about them and the scribes questioning with them, and straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, running to him and saluted him. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them? And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit, and whatsoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and foameth, and gnasheth his teeth, and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. Here you see this man, he had a deaf and dumb spirit. The spirit had possessed him and took away this child's ability to speak, this child's ability to hear, and this demon had possessed him and did this to him. And this great multitude, and you see all these people, they're all around Jesus again. They're asking questions. The scribes and the Pharisees were constantly trying to confuse Jesus. They were constant. You know what was amazing? Jesus was never confused. You know what was amazing? Jesus had an answer for everything. And like I said this week, I was talking to this guy. He's trying to convince me the earth's flat. He's coming up with this reason, that reason, and this and that. And he thought he had an answer for everything. And, he thought he was pretty smart. I was like, all right. And then I got to the point where I explained to him a couple things. And, I told him the one thing, and all the guys were like, yeah, that makes sense. What do you have an answer for that? And then he went right off topic on that one and tried to, and at the end, I couldn't tell if he was really just trying to get on my nerves at that point, or which I was like, I didn't care. And then I was like, we got to get back to work. We're not spending all day talking about if the earth's flat here, buddy. But, Jesus had an answer for everything. These scribes, these Pharisees, they always tried to trip him up. They always tried to get him confused. But he was never confused. And here you see this man brings his child who's possessed by a devil, and he brings it to the disciples, brings him to the disciples. I don't know if the disciples were overzealous and said, hey, Jesus is busy, he's talking to the crowd, we can help you. We're going to try this out. We're going to try casting out some demons. We seen Jesus do it. We seen Jesus do spectacular things. I don't know if it was Peter, James, and John. I don't know who it was. It says we brought them to the disciples. Maybe it wasn't part of the inner three. Maybe it wasn't part of the 12 there. Maybe Jesus had other disciples besides the 12 that followed him. I don't know what disciples was, but I don't know if they just thought, hey, Jesus does it. We're going to give it a try. We're going to try it out. But what happens? Nothing. Nothing. And I want you to notice, it's not because that it was only Jesus that could do it. It was because that they weren't spiritual. They brought him to Jesus. And he answereth him and saith, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. Jesus told him, you're not able to cast out the devil, you're not able to cast out the demon because you're a faithless generation. Because you don't believe. Jesus did a lot of interesting things. Remember the man that was healed? He spit on him, put his fingers in his ears. And sometimes, reading passages like that, reading things that Jesus did, I think, God has a sense of humor. Sometimes I think Jesus was just, playing with his disciples a little bit, because how driven is our human mind? You show Jesus, you see he's doing these miracles, and people think, oh, well, now we got to spit on people and put our fingers in his ears, and that's the magic trick. Now, how many people you think went around and tried that? Because that's the magic trick. That's what we're missing. We got to put the fingers in the ears, or we got to spit on his eyes. That's what we're missing. And what was Jesus trying to get across? He could spit on ears. What was one instance where he spit and he made mud and put mud on their eyes? And what Jesus was trying to get across, Jesus was saying, I can heal these people in any way I want to heal these people. I can put mud on their eyes. I can spit on their eyes. I can put my fingers in their ears. I can blow on their face. I can heal them in any way I want to heal them because I have power, because he's the Son of God. And what he was trying to get across, and to the disciples and the people weren't learning it, it's not about a specific formula. You know, we're so used to doing, you ladies that cook, you have a recipe. If you do it this way, it'll turn out this way. Or if you bake and put all the ingredients, you do it this way, it'll turn out this way. You build a house, you got a set of plans, whatever it is. You have what you do, and if you do it the right way, it will turn out the way you want it to. But that's not Christianity. Christianity is, there isn't, a set of enchantments. There isn't a book that tells you, hey, if you pray this certain way, or if you say these words, that's what fixes that. Christianity is about faith. And Jesus told his disciples, you faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the Spirit tear him, this demon that's within this child, and he fell on the ground, wallowed and foaming. And he asked, how long is it ago since this came unto him? And he said of a child, and oft times it hath cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. He didn't know what to do anymore. And you can imagine having a child that's possessed, trying to save him. This demon was trying to kill this child, cast him into a fire. I can imagine the father's all burned up with scars, putting the fire off his kid, saving his kid, cast the child into the water, trying to kill the child, going into the water to save this child's life. This father, he's broken, he's tired, he just wants his child healed. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. Jesus said, if you have faith, if you believe, and straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe. And what amazing verse here, help thou my unbelief. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've prayed, and that was my prayer. Lord, I know you can do everything, but help my unbelief, because I know I don't believe the way I ought to. Lord, I know all things are possible, but I need you to help me with my belief, Lord, because sometimes I doubt. How many times have I prayed in my personal life, and I've asked God to do things, and then the devil in the back of my head, or the back, just myself, my flesh, say, that's probably not going to happen. That's unbelief. And that's what hinders the mighty hand of God. Any thought in the back of our head where we think that God can't do it, or we think that God's not going to do it, hinders the mighty hand of God. And there is a difference between thinking that God can't do it and then understanding that God has a will. Sometimes God chooses not to do things, and sometimes God chooses to do things. So there is a difference. And we can understand as Christians, hey, God has a plan, and sometimes it's not his plan to answer certain prayer requests the way that we want them answered. May I say, as Christians, God always answers our prayer requests, but it may not be the answer that we want to have. But that's different than you praying and thinking in the back of your head, oh, God's not going to do that, because that's unbelief. There's a difference between unbelief and understanding that God's ways are not our ways, that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, that God's plan is better than our plan, that what God has in store is better than what we have in store, or what picture that we think is better for our lives. But this father, he brings his child, and Jesus said, if you just believe, he said, I believe, Lord. He's crying out with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. And notice this, like I said, we get to something similar. This crowd of people looking for something amazing again. This crowd of people looking to be entertained. As you can understand, this man, he brought this child. You have to understand, Jesus was in Bethsaida. And then he took the man out of the town. He charged the man, don't tell him what happened. Then we skipped Jesus' transfiguration just for time's sake. That amazing thing that happened. And here you see, they came back down. And they brought a child to Jesus. And by the time all this commotion is going on, what's going on? The crowd of fanboys are coming back. You ever see, they have all these people, they go fawning over actors and actresses. And, there he is. And they go running and pull out their phone. Well, that's what happened when Jesus saw the people came running together. They're coming running again for another show. They're coming running again for another reenactment, another entertainment session. He rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch that many said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand, and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could we not cast him out? Notice the disciples, when they privately went into the house, they asked Jesus. They didn't want to be embarrassed. They didn't want Jesus to tell everybody in front of them why they couldn't cast out the devil. But he says, this kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting is what's missing in our generation, in our churches, in our Christianity. The Bible says that the prayers of a righteous man, the prayers of a fervent man, somebody who's in supplication with God, availeth much. When's the last time that you've prayed with supplication and you've prayed with fasting? You say, what is fasting? Fasting is denying your flesh. Fasting can be from food. Fasting can be from social media. Fasting just means denying something that you enjoy doing, denying something that your flesh wants to do, so that you show God that you are serious. So that you show God that you want to get your prayers answered. We're suffering from Christians who don't get their prayers answered because they're Christians that the only times they pray is when they sit down to eat their meal and they thank God for it. And I'm not making light of that. It's good to thank God for your food, but there's a lot more to prayer than just thanking God for your food. There's a lot more to a prayer life than just sitting down and thanking God for the food that He provided for. We need to have a deeper, more closer walk with God if we want to see people helped, if we want to see lives changed. What would happen if some guy, had a child who was possessed by a devil and he knew, hey, maybe Danny, I know he's saved at work. I'm going to bring this child to him. He's supposed to be walking with God. Or what if, some guy at work, he's having issues. And they want to bring somebody to me. And, somebody had a question like that where I was talking to a friend at work and he described exact demonic possession to me. And it was his friend's wife. And I said, listen, the only way that's going to work is you better get her around somebody that knows God. You better get her with some Bible, start praying. And they wanted, and I talked to them, and we went and we read the Bible. And as far as I know, she's doing better now. And I'm not sure what quite happened of that whole situation, but I know it's better now. But what happens when somebody has a need like that and they want to come to you because you're the only person that they know that knows God? What would happen? Would you be like Jesus' disciples? I hope you wouldn't be like the sons of Sceva, as Brother Joe brought up this morning. Jesus I know, Paul I know, but who are you? That'd be a bad situation to be in. But this kind comes forth not, but by prayer and fasting. We're just short generations removed from some true prayer warriors that walked on this earth. Men like George Mueller, who prayed. He had orphanages all over England, took care of young boys and girls, and he never put an ad, never asked for anything. And God answered prayer request after prayer request. I say it all the time, but because it's just so amazing. One morning they had no milk for the children for breakfast, and he prayed, and you know what happened? The milk truck broke down right in front of the orphanage. Another instance happened the same. They didn't have no food, and you know what happened? The bread truck broke down. They let them have bread. Insomuch, like I said, it's recorded that the people who own the places say, hey, stop driving by the orphanages. We're losing too much money. The trucks are breaking down right in front of them. Because of answered prayer. D.L. Moody, it was recorded, he was sailing on a ship. He had a meeting to go to. The fog set in, and when the fog set in so thick that they had to stop the ship there. D.L. Moody went to the shipmaster and said, hey, what's going on? I got to get to this meeting. I believe he was going to Scotland or England at the time. I can't remember. He's like, I got to get to this meeting. And he said, listen, we can't go anywhere. The fog is so thick. We can't move. And he said, all right, I'm going to go pray and we can continue on. And the shipmaster said, I've already prayed and I haven't seen anything. He said, well, I get my prayers answered politely, sir. And I'm going to go pray, and by the time I come back up, we're going to be ready to sail again. You know what happened? D.L. Moody went down and prayed, and by the time he came back up to the shipmaster, the fog was gone, because he got his prayers answered. This kind cometh not, but by prayer and fasting. Are you serious about your prayer life? Do you really want to get some prayers answered? Then you better get serious about fasting, about denying your flesh and getting in touch spiritually with God. Learning to pray. We sing the song, Sweet Hour of Prayer. When's the last time you prayed for an hour? When's the last time you supplicated with God? When you begged God and you talked to God and you prayed, because there's going to come a time when somebody needs a prayer request and they're going to look for somebody. Everybody knows somebody, and you're the person that they know that knows God. How well do you know God? As Brother Joe mentioned, I had not too long ago, these guys at work, a lot of them are just heathen, to put it in a polite way, the way they talk and curse and different things, and, argue with me there is no God, but they had something happen to one guy a couple years ago. Family member, close to him, I believe it was his brother or something like that, was in the hospital. It wasn't looking good. Or it was his sister's husband, I believe. I can't remember. He came to me, and like I said, he told me he was an atheist, this and that. And he came to me begging, hey, can you pray? They're saying he's not going to make it. They're saying he's not going to live. Can you pray? And, I prayed, and the whole church prayed. And, he made it, and he lived. That was the last time he made fun of God in front of me, and that was the last time that he profaned God in front of me. I don't know if he got saved. I witnessed to him. He never made a statement of faith in front of me. But it was a witness to him that God answers prayer. And that God does. Now, like I said, sometimes God's ways are not our ways. Sometimes God's thoughts. Sometimes God has different plans. But you know what? Can you at least pray to get God's attention? Because the Bible is all about getting God's attention. You see time and time again where men prayed and moved the heart of God. Where men prayed and God changed his mind. All throughout the Old Testament. You see where men spoke with God, where men talked to God. God was ready to wipe out the Israelites and start with Moses. Moses talked them out of it. Well, he said, Lord, you can't do that. What about your promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And you know what happened? God listened to Moses. Where people talked with God and got God's attention. There's a man named John Knox. Queen of England said, I feared the prayers of John Knox more than any standing army in Europe. A man who prays and gets his prayers answered. You know why prayer is not so big in our society and our churches anymore? It's for the same reason why we just preached this message. Prayer is private, is not entertainment. People don't like prayer. Why? Because it's not entertainment. It's not a show. You know, if you're really getting your prayers answered, you're getting your prayers answered in your place where you pray, in your prayer closet. That's where your prayers are getting answered. A prayer warrior is not some showman. A prayer warrior is not some entertainment. A prayer warrior is somebody who talks and walks with God and gets their prayers answered. That's not common in our day and age. That's not common in our Christianity. Christians want to be entertained just like these people. They want to be entertained. They want to see something spectacular. They want to see something amazing. But prayer warriors' prayers are answered in private. And you know what? A prayer warrior knows when God answers their prayer. And a true prayer warrior doesn't go blabbing it everywhere. You won't see a true prayer warrior posted on Facebook, this person was healed because of my prayers. You see people give thanks to God, thank the Lord for answering a prayer. But you won't see them bragging, being proud about it in any way, shape, or form, because they know that pride is what will separate their prayer life from God. And they know to stay humble. So if you want to get your prayers answered, this kind cometh forth but by prayer and fasting. A few quick thoughts on prayer. As we talked about, not wanting to be entertained, not wanting just to see something spectacular, but have a relationship with God and be there to help people. If you want to have a deeper walk with God, have a place where you meet with God every day. You can pray anywhere. You can pray. You can take a walk and pray. You can have a prayer closet, a certain room. It can be by your bed. It can be driving to work. But may I encourage you, have a place every day where you meet with God and where you pray. The Apostle John, they called him Camel Knees. And they called him Camel Knees because he would kneel down and pray. And he prayed so much that his knees were so calloused from spending time on them that they looked like camel knees because the amount of hours he spent on his knees praying. Have a place where you meet with God. Have a place where you talk with the Lord. Have a place, have a time where you meet with God. Have a time where you talk with God. Now, like I said, spend as much time. The Bible says pray without ceasing. But you need to have a time and place every day where you know you're going to your prayer closet and the phone doesn't go with you. And social media gets shut off or whatever. The television isn't running or all the. Have a place, have a time where it's quiet and you can meet and you can talk with God and have supplication with the Lord. Have a place, have a time, have a routine or a habit out of it. Do it every day. Do it every day. Don't miss a day. And as Jesus mentioned here, if you want to be serious about your prayer life, start fasting. Deny your flesh, whether it be food, whether it be a hobby, whether it be social media, television. Start fasting. Say, I'm going to give this up, and take that time and give it to the Lord. That's what fasting is. If you're going to give up social media, the time that you would spend on social media, use that time for prayer. If you're going to give up eating, the time where you would normally have dinner, breakfast, spend that time in prayer. If you're whatever it is, maybe television or whatever, the time that you would spend watching television, take that time that you're not watching television and spend it in prayer. May I say this? You know what doesn't make sense? I talk to some people about fasting. They give up social media and then they spend that time on social media watching television. You're missing the point there. You're not supposed to replace that fasting time with another hobby or something else. You're supposed to replace that fasting time with prayer. That's the point of fasting. That whatever time you're replacing, if you're spent eating, we sit down, we have dinner, or if we're fasting, how long would you have dinner for? I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Spend that 15, 20, 30 minutes that you would be eating in prayer. That's what prayer and fasting is. Have a place, have a time, have a routine. If you want it all alliterated for you, you can have a place and a plan. I forget the other P, but something like that. Have your time that you spend in prayer and fasting and give it to the Lord. Christ's ministry was not about entertainment. It was not about a show. It was about the people. It was about helping the person. Jesus cared for the person. The people wanted a show. And that's a big difference. Spiritual people care about people. Carnal Christians care about entertainment. They care about a show. That's not how we ought to live our Christian life. Head bowed, eyes closed here this morning. If you truly want to help people, you have to be a person of prayer. You have to be a man of prayer. You have to be a woman of prayer. I truly believe that I am blessed beyond measure in my life, that I am helped beyond measures because of the people who pray for me. And I know for sure my wife prays for me all the time. Wives, don't take it for granted. Pray for your husband. I know there's times where I'm under demonic attack, demonic oppression, if you will. My wife's praying for me and it helps. People in the church praying for me and it helps. Don't take it for granted. Be somebody that can get their prayers answered, that can help others. Be a woman of prayer who can get your prayers answered. Be a man of prayer who can get your prayers answered. Be a person that cares about people and not about a show, not about entertainment. May I say this? We're not here to be entertained. We're here to meet with God. We're here to meet with the Lord, and we're here to help people and to be helped. Let's take our songbooks. Turn to page 488. The Lord spoke to your heart. You can come to the altar and pray. You can pray at your pew. If you're not saved here this morning, if you've never accepted Jesus Christ into your heart, doesn't matter how young you are,